right. How about that?
Huh?
Reading a couple more of these poems that you wrote here.
All right. When day is done, at eventide, when day is done, I love to watch the setting sun, to see the birds fly home to rest, and to comfort young ones in the nest. The moon casts down its eerie light to battle the darkness of the night, bathing the earth in its silvery glow, equals any sight I know. The evening breeze, in its gentle way, conquers the best of the dying day. The dew on the grass, as it reflects the moon's light, sparkles like diamonds into the night. The stars in the sky appear to be one, as the earth is darkened by the setting sun. Fireflies add to the evening show, blinking their lights as they flit to and fro. A few lines above, I've written in verse, are just a few joys of the universe. The real pleasures in life are given us free. God made it that way. Read this book and you'll read his book and you'll see. Reunion time. When our family gets together, you'd best be extra strong, for the hours of vigorous action are exceptionally long. There's no sports too strenuous, though the boys are past their prime. They have no respect at all, it seems, for good old Father Time. As in its rule, you must be active as long as it stays light. Then it's cards or maybe board games far into the night. The distaff don't seem concerned a bit with all this action flack. Those statistics give us warning about vacation heart attacks. It's time in all our lives, I think, to call all this strenuous action off and be contented to settle for a relaxing game of golf. Hey, what right do I have to give this warning? You all know, you all will think I'm joking to tell you not to over-exercise, and I don't give up smoking. Want to read some more?
Yeah, one more I think is there.
Today the day I mow the lawn. Oh no, my neighbor's off. Promised him the mower, so I guess I'll go play golf. Ought to mend the roof though, it leaks, my Kathy says. My Kathy thinks, but you can't keep them waiting when you're due out on the links. The kitchen needs some painting, which causes me remorse, but I'm part of the foursome waiting on the course. Might get a rainy day sometime, then I'll get the house chores done. But there's no sense in wasting the good old Florida sun. It's nice to own a house, I guess, but work comes up too often. It's always getting in my way when I want to go golfing. I guess that's it.
Good.
I guess I read them all.
Sampling.
Huh?
I said that's a good sampling. So a couple things. Tell the story of that courthouse in Cassopolis that we saw the picture of.
Oh, well, the courthouse was built when Catherine's grandfather was a chairman of the Board of Supervisors of Cass County. And
who's the grandfather? The name?
Oh, name was Charlie Kimmerly, Catherine's grandfather. He was very active, and I think he attended 8 or 9 national conventions as a delegate, and one time run for governor of Michigan against Palmer.
Do you remember when it was built?
No, I don't.
But he helped build it.
Well, he was chairman. Yeah, he was chairman of the Board of Supervisors. Supervisors, of course, was the one that okayed the building of the courthouse, and he was chairman of that Board of Supervisors. Every township has a supervisor. What is there, 12, 16 townships, and every township has its own supervisor. Well, he was chairman of that Board of Supervisors, and of course they were the ones that okayed the budget and everything for the building of the course. I don't remember exactly what year it was built. Well, it was there ever since it was built before 1920, because I came to Michigan in 1920, and it was there. It was built at that time, so I don't remember when it was built.
Why did you choose to move to Cassopolis?
What?
Why did the family choose to move to Cassopolis?
Well, because that's where Dad was looking around for farms, and I guess that was the one that fitted best with his budget, although it wasn't. He lived all of his life in that very rich, the richest land in the United States, in the world, in fact, the great Midwest fertile lands, probably some of the most fertile lands in the world, right in through Illinois, Iowa, and Ohio, the middle portion of those states. So he saw a lot of those guys, how they were making money, and died as wealthy men, those farmers around there. And then we went up to Michigan, and the land was not very fertile. In fact, a lot of Michigan, they shouldn't have cut the trees off of it. That's about all they were good for, is forest land. So the soil was not very fertile, so the crops were half to a quarter what they produced per acre down in Illinois. Anyway, that's I suppose a farm. We had 135 acres, I think, and I suppose it was within his budget. And he was never been on a farm, and he didn't. I guess he didn't realize what fertility was, but it happened. That would have been a better beach than it would have been farmland. So we lived in pretty much poverty in all the years that I was there. After Bob came along, he kind of shook things up a little bit and got fertilizers and modern things that made the land produce better. And he put a lot of it out to trees too. I think he's planted something like 12,000 pine trees on the land that was least fertile. They're about 40 years old now. It's a real big forest. But Bob planted all of those. So that was my experience as a farmer.
Talk about, you told me your mother.
Huh?
You told your mother graduated from school.
Oh, Illinois, yeah. Mother graduated in piano and organ and music. I don't know whether she graduated or not. She attended some years. I don't know whether she got a degree or not.
Where did she attend?
Oh, Illinois Wesleyan in Bloomington. It was a Illinois Wesleyan College, I think it was. It wasn't a university, I don't believe, but there's quite a good music school there, and she attended some time. I don't think she graduated. Got a degree there.
Did she do anything with her degree?
Huh?
Did she do anything with her degree?
Well, yes, she was a very accomplished pipe organist and musician, a piano and organ and pipe organ. She played at the Methodist Church there in Cassopolis for many years. Not in Cassopolis, in Normal. At the Methodist Church there.
Did she give lessons or anything?
She gave music lessons. That's what she did until she got married. And I guess sometimes after maybe, not too long, that was her job, music teacher. She had 5 children, well, and not one of them played the piano. I think I was the only one that really started. I didn't get very far, but she she just didn't have time for it at that time. She was so tied up with her duties as a housewife and feeding 5 children and all the work that goes along with keeping a 6 or 7 room house. So I guess a lot of it was due to her lack of time to get at teaching, but none of the children play the piano.
You know how your parents met?
No, I guess I don't know how they met. No.
Obviously, they were both in Normal.
Huh?
They both lived in Normal, I guess.
Yeah, they both lived in Normal, and of course,
Your dad didn't go.
they went to the same church. Dad at that time was attending church pretty regularly, I guess. And I suppose they met at church or church parties or something, both in the same Methodist church. So I assume that was where they went. Dad was kind of a wild kid. He used to spend a lot of time playing cards in the park there next to, on the edge of the ISNU campus. He and a bunch of a gang of guys, not too good a bunch of kids. And he spent a lot of time there with that gang. But I guess they probably met in church. That's
About talking about each one of your kids when they were young and what they were like. Starting with Billy. What do you
well, Bill, of course, was the oldest child. He probably I relied on him to, whenever I needed help, to help, and he was a very reliable kid. Always could depend on Bill to do the duties you assigned him. Very conscientious. Mary Jo was always young child. Always had her opinions. Remember, some little expression we used to have about her and her voicing her opinions at all times. Charlie was not a dependable guy to get accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. When you asked him to do it, even when he was working for others, I've seen him. He was working for a guy picking cherries, and he didn't like it very well, so he walks off right in the middle of the morning, don't say anything to the guy, and comes home, and he told him, he didn't even tell him he was quitting. But he's managed to accomplish pretty great things in his lifetime, done real well. Bill, of course, was always in engineering. He's sort of a genius in science, and especially in his field, engineering field. Spent all his life there. Graduated from the University of Michigan in electrical engineering. Who was it after? I don't know. Then married Jeannie. Jeannie. See, I guess she's the only one that didn't graduate from college. She.
What was she like as a kid?
Huh?
What was she like as a kid, child?
What
was she like as a child? What do you remember about her as a child?
Well, she was. She didn't like life too well. She was kind of a cranky child when she was little. Always not too happy. But later in life, she was. She got changed and was an average child. She never was too interested in education. In fact, I think she come home right in the middle of the class. Now we didn't even know she was quitting school, and she was going to Michigan State. She stayed with her cousin. They roomed together. Her cousin from Elkhart and Marilyn Russey. I think they all had an apartment together there in Michigan State. But Jean, she didn't. I forget whether she went as a sophomore or junior or when she did quit. But she decided she didn't want to go to college any longer, and she did. I don't think she's the only one that didn't get a degree. David, of course, started out at Michigan State. He wasn't quite ready for college yet. He was not quite mature, and he got in some trouble and got into a bad bunch of guys. And I don't remember how long he went to Michigan State. I think he was in diving there. I think he was in diving at State. And anyway, he got in trouble and quit Michigan State. And he stayed a summer with me when down in Florida. In between, while I was getting adjusted again, he quit his. I don't know how deep he was in dope, probably not much beyond marijuana. But anyway, he quit Michigan State and stayed a summer with me and got adjusted and happy again and went into Calvin College as a theology student. Of course, that helped him. Studying theology helped him get out of the draft for the Vietnam War, I guess. He never had go into the war because of his subjects in school. Anyway, that's where he met Mary, and that's where he graduated from. Pretty good reputation, and he was a champion diver of the whole that group of schools. I forget what the name of the group they called that, were Calvin and Alma College, and those schools were in that group. But he won the top honors for diving.
What do you remember about him as a child? About Dave as a child?
Well, I don't think that he got the care that the other children did. Their mother was got into a lot of volunteer work and farmed him out a good many days to a group, family there in wherever we lived in Granville. He stayed with a family called Princers. A good deal of his time, very young life, was spent at Princers, and I remember he talks about now how he didn't. I thought he liked it. Their Princers were a very caring family and a very fine family. I thought he'd enjoy it there, but he tells now how he felt neglected by his mother leaving him all the time. His mother got into an awful lot of Red Cross and volunteer work, hospitals, and she spent an awful lot of her time away from children, away from her duty as a mother. I don't know what, she changed her attitude, because she always had the attitude the mother should stay, be at home and not do any outside work, and she did that all her life. Even with my meager earnings, she somehow managed without having to go outside and work for a living. But with David, she kind of, I don't know whether it was change of life or whether it was age. She was about 45 when, I think she's about 43 or 44 when Dave was born. So it may be she was coming into a change. Anyway, his child life was not as good as the other four children, when their mother was more attentive to them than she was to Dave. So it had some effect on his life. Him being a lot younger than the other children, he spent a lot of his childhood without any brothers and sisters around, all off working or at school. And so a lot of his time was spent as an only child. So he's a little different.
Are there any, especially when your kids were young, so is there any stories that when your kids were young that you remember that they may or may not remember that might be interesting for them to hear or hear you recount? And because they can, I'm sure they remember when they're older, when they're in college and stuff, but what about when they were younger, and what kind of
I can't remember any special stories, I guess.
What was the Christmas like when the kids were?
Huh?
What was the Christmas like, say, when I guess maybe Gene had just been born, so you had the four kids and.
Well, Christmas is always, of course, quite an event. Their mother was great on Christmas, so we always. I remember for years we always played Scrooge, or they had to have Scrooge for Christmas. It run in our family for all the time the kids were home, I think. Every Christmas we had to listen to what's the name of the Bah Humbug? What's the name of that?
Christmas Carol?
Christmas Carol, I guess it is. Yeah, but every Christmas we wore. It got so tiresome with me, but the kids all had to have that going every Christmas. That's about the main thing I remember about that. It got awful tiresome for me, but they always, they never seemed to tire, but they seemed to just have to have that tale of.
And you would listen to that on the radio?
No, they had a record they played on a phonograph record.
Remember who it was by?
I suppose that they'd listen to it. It usually is on sometime in the radio during Christmas. I suppose they'd be right in there listening to it but I don't remember particularly. But I think they had a record that was played. I believe that's the way we heard it.
About music, did you?
Huh?
Were there any traditions with music? And
What?
when the kids were young, were there any traditions with music? Did you listen to? Was it Bing Crosby? Did you listen to the Messiah?
Elvis.
Well,
I remember there were Jeannie. Yeah, Jeannie was. I think that's the time when Elvis was. I don't know. Remember about the other kids who they. I suppose that they'd had the favorite of their times. Billy, of course, Billy and Charlie, the boys. I don't think had any particular interest in really, but the girls I'm sure had. I remember Elvis with Jeannie, but I don't remember Bing Crosby. I suppose with Mary Jo. Bing was very popular at that time. I suppose that would be her interest in music.
What about what kind of toys did the kids play with?
Huh?
What kind of toys did the kids play with when they were 10 and under and such? Remember what they had for? Did they have any special toys or?
Not that I remember of. Of course, Billy when he was, well, I guess he was about his last year in high school when he built that boat. He built a pretty big speedboat right there at the house. I remember he even to round out his planks for the front of the boat. He did that. He'd build a fire under a tree with water boiling, and the boards all leaning up against the tree to warp them the way he'd want them, and he was very well. Of course, he was very good when he was a very young boy. He spent a lot of his time summers. We had a big family, of course, and I always thought the mother kind of farmed him off down there, and I thought it wasn't too pleasant a summer. He wouldn't get to spend any. He spent 3 or 4 or 5 summers down there helping Grover. Grover was in the farm equipment business for John Deere. John Deere, the local hardware there, had a John Deere agency. And Grover was their salesman. And so Bill did a lot of work with Grover, and I remember a guy, Grover's, he was out with him building equipment. All the farmers were amazed at how Bill could see to getting the tools together without too much instruction from the instructions that came with it. He was well sort of all the farmers were amazed at his ability to do that sort of thing. And I used to think that it was not a very good summer, but he never seemed to regret it. He used to keep him, Grover, kind of used him a lot, I thought. we'd stay out all night fox hunting, and Grover had him out with him on his on weekends. They used to have a gang that went out hunting foxes all night long. They didn't. They just sick the dogs on them. I think the dogs never caught them, but they'd keep following the dogs and the foxes all night long. Fox chase. Anyway, that was their hobby. And Grover was quite. They had a club that went out every weekend fox hunting. And we used to go with them, and then I remember Grover used to play a lot of cards at a card place downtown where a lot of guys gathered to play cards. And Bill used to have to sit in the car waiting for Grover to come out. And I thought they used him quite a bit. A lot of the guys, his grandfather and father would, Frances worked all day, of course, and the men would never help her with the dishes, and they always sent Bill out to help her with her chores in the evening. But he never seemed to regret it. He seemed to, time to time kept asking him about it, but he seemed to have enjoyed it. He didn't feel that he was pushed off. So that was his experience in young life, and of course he was always very interested in scientific things and doing things that were scientific. And I remember he used to do a lot of camping with the kids in camping clubs, and we were not very wealthy. We finally were able to buy him a pretty good sleeping bag to go out with when he went out where they would use a sleeping bag. And the first night he got it after he longed for it for quite a while, and we finally were able to get some money together to buy him his sleeping bag, and he burned it up the first night, which was a terrible tragedy, and we couldn't afford to buy him another one. So I suppose a little later we might have bought him, but he went a long time without it. Because what a terrible thing that was for him to burn his new sleeping bag up first night he used it. And then he used to love to ski it, and we finally was able to buy him a set of skis that were, it was a long time getting them, but we got them for him finally.
About Mary Jo, what did she do as a child?
Huh?
Mary Jo as a child, what did she do? Did she have any activities or?
I don't know any particular activities. She always had 2 or 3 favorite girlfriends, and she spent a lot of time with them at their house. And she was always very, very friendly and always had a lot of girlfriends. Most all of she was better than with the number of friends she had, and she was somewhat of a leader with all of her girlfriends. But I was better, more than any of my other children, was involved in that social life. Bill, more or less, only had one special friend. He was in athletics, of course, all through school. Football and basketball, I think. I don't think he played any baseball. but he was active in football and basketball. But he never was much to have too many. He always had one special friend all through high school, and he and that friend both were the same type of guy, I guess. Roomed all through the 4 years at University of Michigan. He was taking architecture, and Bill was studying, of course, engineering. But he roomed with him all through his life in college.
What about Charlie when he was young? What did he do?
Charlie, of course, when he got to college age, he had things were. Billy always was able to. He worked for some special wood working company, and they liked him very much, and he was very good at it. So anytime spare time he had that job. So he didn't have too much trouble. But Charlie, during college, he had an awful time getting summer work to help him with his college tuition. But I think he went right straight through the 4 years without any interruption. I don't think he had to stay out of school. Any?
Charlie as a boy, do you remember what he used to do? And
Uh-huh.
what did Charlie like to do as a boy?
Well, I guess when he was a boy, he was out we were out in the country, and I guess he and the farmer boy next door spent a lot of their time together. That was during his middle years of 7 to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, something like that, when we lived out there. So he always had several friends that he spent a lot of time with.
All right, anything about Jean as a young girl? What did she like to do?
Well, I don't remember anything special that she was in. Just a normal young girl's life, I guess. She had also several friends. We lived in kind of a farm house out in the country, so the friends were pretty much scattered along the highway that we lived on. So there weren't any girls too close to her, but she and had friends along that way. They all went to a country school. And she had a normal amount of friends in school. But we went to I forget, it was just a 2-room school, I think, they went to until they went into high school. So she just spent, I guess, what you'd call a normal young child's life with her girlfriends and her life. Just what all young girls do. I don't know particularly anything special.
No interests that you remember? Anything that she was particularly interested in? I guess you mentioned Elvis, but...
What?
Did she have any particular interest? You mentioned Elvis was one of them, but do you remember anything else about movie stars or music or Girl Scouts?
No, nothing I can think of. No, I guess I don't know anything that she did was extra special that I can stand out in my mind. Just a regular, normal young girl's life, whatever that is. I'm not. Nothing stands out particularly for me. In fact, none of the children. I wasn't. I spent an awful lot of time in my business, and I guess I wasn't too attentive a father. Wasn't over helpful with them or playing with them in their spare time, as some fathers do. I spent, of course, I always worked for Sears, and there's a lot of evening work. I was gone, I worked 50 to 60 hours a week. And I didn't devote the time that a lot of fathers do to their children. Mother was a lot closer to them than I was. Spent too much time in my work. That's one thing about Charlie. Charlie has been able to get where he is today with the least amount of work I've ever seen. He can get more accomplished with the least amount of work. Of course, that's what makes a good executive.
Let's talk about the house that. So you lived in Granville when the kids were young?
Yeah, we lived out on that farm, and Mother got tired when the kids were going to high school of running in and out with them to 4 or 5 miles from the high school, and so we moved into right into town, give up the farm. We had 7 acres out there.
Did you buy that house?
Huh?
When did you buy that house?
I bought that house shortly after I came to Grand Rapids. When I came to Grand Rapids, Mother didn't even see the house that I bought. She was busy with the children in Homewood, and never got up to even see the house that I bought. And that was right in the heart of town, pretty close to the colored neighborhood. It was getting to be quite a bit of colored neighborhood around there, right near to the, well, it was right across the street from the schoolhouse, and we're kind of a busy neighborhood anyway. She didn't, she thought we should be out, so she bought this, got out and looked around, bought this farm out in the country, 4 or 5 miles out of Granville, and we enjoyed it out there. She bought, we of course had a big garden and everything, and we had a stream right on the farm, and it was nice for the young children. But when they got old enough to high school and they had other duties, she got tired of running them in and out to school.
What was that house like? How many bedrooms?
Huh?
What was that house like? How many bedrooms did it have?
Well, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms. That's another one. Every house we had, the kids. That's another. The kids grew up in a house being remodeled. So in that house, we tore out the living room and changed all the stairway up there. Made a lot of remodeling deals there. So, and I remember the house when we bought it, and when Jeannie was just a toddler. She never remembers that house when it was completely finished. She only lived in. We just tore the thing all apart when we got it. She just revamped rooms, changed rooms, and it was in a torn up condition. Recited the outside of the house. We changed the whole house. Took the porch off, made it into a living room, and enlarged the bedrooms, and took the porch off completely, and closed it in all the way around. It was an open porch. We closed it in all the way around and made it part of the living room and one of the bedrooms for the children. And that was, of course, a torn up job. She lived in that confusion all of her young life almost until, and she was just a little one then. I remember one time in all the confusion, she fell on a glass and cut her chest open, and all the mess she had to run around in, but she never knew in her young life, anytime when we weren't in a state of confusion, torn up, remodeling. All the kids had to put up with a lot of that. In the farmhouse, we made some big changes. And then I guess and when we moved into town, that next house, we didn't do any changing in that house. And then after that, of course, well, the children are pretty well grown then. She built those two homes. We built first home and didn't like it, and then she built a second one. She built two houses. I wasn't too enthused about that. I was the one that watched the money and was sure we could afford what she was doing. But she planned the houses. She laid the plans and took them to a draftsman, had the plans drafted, but she pretty well give them the plans that she wanted, and had the draftsman work the plans so the carpenters could work them. On both houses, she designed them herself. So, well, the kids were pretty well grown when she did that. But she built the first house and sold it, and didn't like it, and built a second. Both in Granville. I guess David probably was in school. Yeah, David was probably in school. And still, his mother then was busy than she should have been. David, I remember, spent many, many evenings with a friend of his in high school, and hardly ever home. And of course, all the other kids were gone. He was the only one at home. It wasn't the same when the other kids had their brothers and sisters to play with.
So when you, circling back to when you got married and before kids, and you kept your marriage a secret and other things. Did you and Catherine go anywhere for a honeymoon when you finally announced it? Or are you just too busy did you travel any place that was?
Hardly any place. No, we didn't have the money. Well, later, in later years, of course, I spent a couple of vacations in Florida when I got so we could afford it. But our younger years, no, I don't remember any place we went on vacation. Mother used to want us to borrow money for vacations, but I would never do it. I didn't think that was right for us to do that, so we were pretty well attached to. Of course, we never had any honeymoon. In fact, I didn't live with her when I told you about how when we eloped, I left her out. She was going to stay with her aunt down in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and she lived down there. I guess she was down there for a month or so, and came back, then had her own apartment. We hadn't announced our wedding, and she got tired of that, of course, right away, and she insisted we announce it, and then she come to live in the boarding house with me. But we had no honeymoon at all. Well, hardly. I don't. I told you. I guess I didn't even. She used her mother's wedding ring. We didn't. I didn't even buy her a wedding ring. We're engaged. We weren't engaged at any time at all. We decided in 3 years after she came back from California to decided in 3 days we was going to get married. No plans, no honeymoon. I'm sure she would have joined some kind of a wedding ceremony, but nothing.
All right, well, let's take. Are you taking Bill's picture?
I am.